Greetings to all from the unique Uinta Mountains of Utah. I'm Cordell Andersen. I introduce my new digital book that is being called The Only Encyclopedia of the Uinta Mountains. The name of the book is The Uinta Mountains, a complete guide to high adventure in Utah's alpine wonderland. It can be acquired on my website, cordellandersen.com. With a few clicks of your mouse, you can have the book downloaded onto your computer, your laptop, whatever. The book right now is at an introductory price of $15.95. That price will hold until the end of June, and on July 1st it will go up to $19.95. It is a very large book. As you can see here, I've actually printed out one copy just for myself. It has 1,600 color photographs, over 120 maps, 106 of them topographical map with a lot of color. Of course, since I'm not National Geographic, you can't print a book like that, and so it is available online to get onto your computer. Of course, once you have it on your computer, you can print out sections of a particular trip that you're going to take, a hike, a backpack, a horseback, a goatback, whatever. Having these maps, of course, will make it a lot safer. They have distances, labels, and of course the routes, the trails that you can take into every single nook and cranny of the Uinta Mountains. The book begins page expressing my gratitude to all my Uinta friends, and then there's the table of contents of the whole book. And then I go into, after the table of contents, I go into the table of contents of the history, legends, and life-saving stories. And you'll see that there are 95 items that I've included, articles, information, life-saving stories, survival stories of those that didn't make it and what was their mistake, and my life survival stories and why I'm still backpacking in my 84th year. And of course it has all kinds of other things. So at the end of that section, there's also a table of contents of the appendix with 15 items. The foreword to the book is written by my two original backpacking buddies, who are still my backpacking buddies, Ted Packard and Charlie Peterson, who very kindly did that for me, introducing to the world the book. The preface explains how I became introduced to the Uinta Mountains when I was 16 years old, having recently moved from California, and I I just fell in love with the Uinta Mountains, and that was a time when I vowed that before I died, I would explore, photograph, and report on all of the Uinta, its primitive area at that time in 1952. Of course, by 84, it became the Uinta's wilderness area, the largest wilderness area in Utah. Then I go into the introduction, introducing Kristen and Dorina from Belgium, who I met on Kings Peak, and they said that they preferred the Uinta Mountains to the Alps, and they explained why, and so you'll see that in the introduction. And then in the introduction, I go on to describe how the Uinta Mountains were made. I just very briefly a word or two about the history, and so there I talk about a lot of wonderful, exciting things about the Uintas that make them very unique, including of course, mentioned throughout the book the fishing and some of the record fish that have been caught by me and my buddy Ted Packard over the years, a record grayling, a record brook trout for the state of Utah, and others. And so that's the main focus of the book in a way. All of the 630 lakes of the Uintas are described. And I finished the introduction to the Uintas with a quote from my Uinta friends, Will and Charlie, who are from the east, but they stated that it is the only wilderness area in the United States where you can fly in, rent a car at the airport, and in 2 hours be on the trail to high adventure or high country and incredible wilderness adventure. So that's a statement from those two friends that I met on the trail, among the many hundreds and hundreds that I've met over the 16 years that I've dedicated to this project recently. Um, Chapter 1 deals with all of the Uinta Mountains, and I first each section, I should mention, in the book is prefaced by something about the history, the legends, the survival stories, and I preface chapter number 1, which is an auto loop tour of the Uinta Mountains. But I tell the story of the first auto loop tour of the Uintas in 1926. A very unique story. So this chapter 1 is entitled "Merrily We Roll Along in Our Cars Doing an 856-mile loop tour of the Uinta Mountains." And so you can see the map here, and I witnessing all the wonderful opportunities you have in making this tour, which make the Uinta Mountains equal to or better than some national parks. And then we go to chapter 2, which is the High Uinta Wilderness Area. I tell the story of Eric Robinson, a famous Australian backpacker who was lost for 5 years in the Uintas, and tell his story. And then I start explaining the things those people have got to do to avoid those kind of tragedies. And then we start hitting each specific area in the wilderness area. Section 1, the Highline Trail, and there I explain how I have worked with the Division of Wildlife Resources to update all of the lakes of the Uintas. And so this is the only book that has updated information on all of these lakes and the fishing opportunities and how to get to each one of them. All the information is there, along with topographical maps. And then we come to chapter 3, the Western Uintas, which most of which at one time was a proposed wilderness area, the Mount Watson Wilderness Area. And then go on to show all of the areas of the Provo and the Weaver River drainages, all the trailheads that are available, which is basically from the Mirror Lake Scenic Byway to the west. And then we come to chapter 4, the Eastern Uintas, and that whole area of on the north slope of the Uinta Mountains, and the trailheads that access a whole bunch of lakes. Then we swing around to the south slope, always in the Eastern Uintas. And then we come to chapter 5, which is about lightweight, joyful, and safe backpacking, beginning with a preface article about why do men explore. And then I get into the meat of that chapter, which is how to do lightweight, joyful, and safe backpacking and experience the glorious magic of the mountains. But I explain that there are glitches if we're not careful, and so I tell all these stories, some of them kind of funny, about my early experience and learning whatnot, and then I go through the logical order of preparation to have safe and enjoyable backpacks. And then we come to the appendix, and then there's a very detailed reference section listing everything that I have used to write this book. And in that section I also have a list of the 38 YouTube videos which I've produced. Then we come to the index, which is 14 pages and very detailed. And so there it is, the High Uinta Mountains, a complete guide to high adventure in Utah's Alpine Wonderland, that you can get by going to my website, CordellMAndersen.com. A few clicks of your mouse, you'll have it on your computer. I hope and pray that it will be a blessing in your lives, as it has been in my life, to actually put all of this together for all of my High Uinta friends and anybody that's interested in enjoying safely the outdoors.